The air in Las Vegas always hummed a low thrum of anticipation and possibility. Tonight it wasn't just the neon lights or the jingle of slot machines that vibrated through the International Hotel. Tonight it was a different kind of electricity, something tangible that made the hairs on Clara's arms stand on end. She clutched the small beaded purse her mother had given her knuckles white. "Excited, sweetie?" her mom, Sarah, whispered, her voice barely audible over the growing murmur of the crowd. Clara nodded, a shy smile playing on her lips. Excited wasn't even the word. Terrified. Like standing on the edge of a cliff about to jump into something magnificent and unknown. This wasn't just any concert. This was Elvis Presley, the king, in the flesh. For weeks, ever since her dad Robert had surprised them with the tickets, Clara had lived in a dream. She was 17, usually quiet and more comfortable buried in a book than in a bustling crowd. Her high school life felt like a tangled knot of unspoken worries. College applications looming, friendships shifting, and that persistent nagging feeling that she didn't quite belong anywhere. Music, especially Elvis's records, had been her escape, a place where she felt understood. And now, she was here. They found their table, surprising close to the stage. On a pristine white tablecloth, glasses gleamed silverware, sparkled, and a small, delicate vase held a single, perfect red rose. Clara reached out, tracing the rim of a water glass. A regular glass, just like any other. But tonight, everything felt charged with significance. The room was a kaleidoscope of fashion. Men in sharp suits, women in glittering gowns, their laughter and chatter filling the cavernous showroom. The scent of expensive perfume mingled with cigar smoke, a heady mix that spoke of glamour and excitement. Clara felt a little out of place in her simple blue dress, but then she reminded herself that tonight, everyone was just a fan, everyone was waiting for the same magic. A hush began to fall over the room, a collective holding of breath. The house lights dimmed, plunging the vast space into a velvet darkness. A ripple of applause, then a crescendo of cheers began to build from the back of the room, rolling forward like a wave. Clara gripped the edge of the table, her heart hammering against her ribs. Her dad leaned over. "Here we go," he mouthed, his eyes twinkling. He was a big Elvis fan, almost as much as Clara. And this trip had been a dream for him too. Seeing his enthusiasm, seeing her mom's calm joy, made Clara feel a warmth spread through her. Maybe, just maybe, this trip could fix some of the things that felt broken inside her. The stage remained dark for a moment longer, building the suspense to an almost unbearable peak. Clara could hear the rapid thumping of her own pulse in her ears. She closed her eyes for a split second, taking a deep breath, trying to imprint this feeling, this moment, into her memory. Forever, she wanted to remember the exact mix of fear and exhilaration, the taste of the humid Vegas air, the anticipation that buzzed in every fiber of her being. Then a spotlight flared, cutting through the darkness like a laser. It wasn't on the main stage yet, but on the side entrance. A ripple of screams erupted, a sound so primal and powerful it made Clara jump. The band, already in place, struck the opening chords of an electrifying instrumental. The drums kicked in a powerful driving rhythm that seemed to pound in sync with Clara's racing heart. And then he was there. A magnificent white figure sparkling under the lights, swaggering onto the stage with an air of pure, undeniable royalty. Elvis Presley. He looked even larger than life, his famous jumpsuit gleaming, his black hair falling perfectly. Collective gasp. Then a roar of applause swallowed the room whole. Clara felt a tear prick her eye. It was real, all of it. The voice on the records, the legend, the larger-than-life persona, it was all here embodied in one man. He was everything she had imagined, and more. He flashed a smile, a mischievous glint in his eyes, and a shiver ran down Clara's spine. This wasn't just a concert. It was an event. And she was right there in the third row, ready for whatever magic he was about to unleash. She just hoped she was ready for it. The roar of the crowd was deafening, a wave of adulation that could probably be heard all the way down the strip. Elvis took center stage, soaking it all in a smirk playing on his lips. He raised a hand not to silence them, but to acknowledge them, to share in their collective euphoria. His presence filled the massive showroom, making it feel both grand and intimate at the same time. He had a way of looking out into the audience, making eye contact, that made everyone feel like he was singing just to them. Clara watched, mesmerized. From her vantage point, she could see the beads of sweat already starting to form on his brow. Even before he'd sung a note, the sheer energy radiating from him was incredible. He wasn't just a singer, he was a force of nature. The band launched into the opening chords of C.C. Rider, a bluesy rocking number that immediately set the tone for the night. Elvis moved a fluid, graceful sway of his hips, a flash of his hand, a turn of his head. Each movement was deliberate, iconic, yet utterly spontaneous. His voice, when it came, was a rich, powerful baritone, filling every corner of the room, cutting through the echoes of the crowd. It was even better lived than on the records. Deeper, richer, with a raw edge that sent shivers down Clara's spine. Clara found herself swaying in her seat, humming along to the familiar melody. All her earlier anxieties, the knot in her stomach about college, the unspoken tension with her best friend back home, seemed to melt away under the sheer force of his performance. In this moment, there was only Elvis, the music, and the electric energy of the crowd. He transitioned backly into, "I Got a Woman," his voice soaring, then dropping into a soulful growl. He worked the stage, moving from one side to the other, tossing scarves to screaming fans in the front row. Clara watched, a wistful smile on her face. She'd never screamed for anyone in her life, but she understood the impulse. There was something about him that just pulled you in. During a brief instrumental break, Elvis stepped forward, a playful twinkle in his eye. "Well, hello there, Las Vegas," he drawled, his voice thick with southern charm. The audience erupted again, thrilled by his direct address. "It's good to be back." He paused, looking around, his gaze seeming to sweep over every face, including, for a fleeting moment, Clara's. Her breath hitched. Did he really look at her? Or was it just the way he made everyone feel? He launched into Proud Mary, his movements becoming more animated. His voice full of a raw, almost gospel-like power. He punched the air, spun and dropped to one knee, singing directly into the microphone with an intensity that Clara had only ever witnessed in her dreams. The band was tight, complementing his every move, every vocal flourish. The brass section blared, the drums pounded, and the guitars wailed, creating a sound that was immense, thrilling, and perfectly balanced. Clara noticed how effortlessly he commanded the stage. He wasn't just singing songs, he was telling stories, sharing emotions, drawing the audience into his world. He glanced at his band members, a shared smile passing between them, a silent acknowledgement of the magic they were creating together. He was clearly enjoying himself, genuinely loving the performance, and that joy was infectious. Her mom leaned over again. "He's amazing, isn't he?" she yelled over the music, her eyes wide with a delight that Clara rarely saw from her usually reserved mother. Clara just nodded, unable to articulate the whirlwind of feelings inside her. It was more than amazing. It was transcendent. It was like he was tapping into something ancient and powerful, something that spoke to the very core of human experience. He embodied rebellion, passion, vulnerability, and pure showmanship all at once. As the song ended with a flourish, the applause was deafening once more. Elvis bowed, a sweat-soaked but beaming figure radiating pure triumph. He took a sip from a glass of water, then wiped his brow with a silk scarf, tossing it into the crowd, sending another wave of screams through the room. The first few songs had been high energy, setting the stage, waking up the audience. But Clara knew from listening to his live albums that Elvis always saved the most powerful, most emotional songs for the middle and end of his sets. She felt a shiver of anticipation. What would he sing next? She just knew with a certainty that settled deep in her bones that tonight was going to be a night she would never ever forget. She had a feeling he was about to unleash something truly special, something that would resonate with her, that would perhaps even offer a hint of the strength she needed to face her own tangled worries. After a few more upbeat numbers, Elvis slowed things down, taking a moment to banter with the crowd. He asked where people were from, shared a couple of jokes, and even playfully chided a woman who kept trying to throw a room key onto the stage. He was so natural, so personable. It felt less like a grand performance and more like a gathering of old friends. This was the Elvis Clara admired even more than the dazzling performer, the man who seemed genuinely humble, genuinely connected to the people who adored him. All right, he chuckled, holding up a hand to quiet the laughter. I see y'all are having a good time, good. That's what we're here for. He took another sip of water from the glass on the small table beside the microphone stand. Clara noticed it, sitting there ordinary and unassuming, amidst the dazzling lights and the extraordinary man. Then he turned to the band. Let's bring it down a little, fellas, he said, his voice softening. I want to sing something that means a lot to me. Something that I hope means a lot to y'all too. A hush fell over the crowd again, this time a more respectful, anticipatory silence. Everyone knew what this meant. This was when he'd sing the ballads, the songs that truly coagulate the depth and range of his voice, the ones that touched the soul. Piano began to play soft, melancholic chords that drifted through the air. It was a familiar melody, one that Clara loved, but hearing it live, played by his musicians, infused with the atmosphere of the room, it felt entirely new. It was Bridge Over Troubled Water. Clara's heart gave a little lurch. Lately, her life felt like a troubled water, murky and difficult to navigate. Her parents had been arguing more than usual, quiet, tense disagreements that made the house feel heavy. Her best friend Sarah had seemed distant since starting to hang out with a new crowd, leaving Clara feeling isolated and a little lost. And the pressure of graduating, of figuring out what came next, weighed heavily on her shoulders. She felt like she was standing on a rickety bridge, unsure if it would hold. Elvis closed his eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. When he opened them, the playful glint was gone, replaced by an expression of deep, almost painful, vulnerability. He stepped to the microphone, his hands clasped loosely in front of him. When you're weary, feeling small, he began, his voice a gentle caress full of empathy. Power was still there, but tempered, controlled, aimed directly at the heart. When tears are in your eyes, I will dry them all. Clara felt a lump form in her throat. His voice was a balm, a comforting presence. It was as if he understood, as if he was singing directly to her, to the quiet struggle she carried inside. She felt the tears welling up in her own eyes, not of sadness, but of a strange mixture of relief and recognition. As the song progressed, the emotional intensity built. Elvis poured every ounce of his being into the lyrics. His voice swelled with the chorus, the power growing steadily. Like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. He wasn't just singing the words, he was living them, feeling every nuance. His face was a mask of raw emotion, his brow furrowed, his eyes squeezed shut during the most powerful moments. Clara noticed a slight tremor in his hand as he held the microphone. He was pushing himself, giving everything he had. The band behind him provided a majestic backdrop, strings soaring, drums building. But it was his voice that was the centerpiece, a force of nature channeling pure feeling. The sound system in the International was incredible, designed to handle the full range of his voice from the softest whisper to the mightiest crescendo. The bass notes vibrated through the floor, through Clara's very bones. The high notes seemed to shimmer in the air. He reached the final verse, the one where the power of his voice truly takes flight. Sail on, silver girl, sail on by. His voice rose, climbing, reaching for something impossible. He leaned into the microphone, his body rigid with effort, his face flushed. Clara could almost feel the sound waves hitting her, a physical sensation. It was like standing in front of a giant speaker, feeling the vibrations in her chest. He held the note, stretching it, infusing it with every ounce of passion he possessed. It wasn't just a high note. It was a testament to endurance, to feeling, to the sheer magnificent power of the human voice. Clara held her breath, lost in the moment. The entire room seemed to be holding its breath with her, suspended in the pure, unadulterated beauty of the sound. The air thrummed, vibrating with the force of his voice, making the very chandelier seem to shimmer. Clara noticed the glass on her table, the water glass shimmering in the stage lights, catching the light like a crystal. And then as Elvis reached the absolute peak of that note, pushing his voice beyond anything she'd ever heard. She heard it, a faint, almost imperceptible ping from the table right in front of her. But it wasn't just her imagination. The sound, the vibrations, they were getting stronger, more intense. A strange, unsettling feeling washed over her. Something was about to happen. Something extraordinary. The air in the showroom thickened, almost palpable, as Elvis held that incredible note. His face was contorted with the sheer effort, veins visible in his neck, his eyes squeezed shut, channeling every fiber of his being into the sound. It wasn't just a vocal performance, it was a physical manifestation of raw emotion, a primal cry of the soul. The band seemed to fade into the background, supporting him, but utterly overshadowed by the pure, unadulterated power. Emanating from his vocal cord, Clara felt it in her chest, a vibrating pressure, like the sound was trying to push through her very being. The entire room seemed to hum, responding to the intensity. The chandeliers above glittered, reflecting the stage lights. And for a split second, Clara wondered if the light fixtures themselves might just shatter from the sheer force of the sound waves. Her gaze was still fixed on the ordinary water glass on their table, the one she had traced with her finger earlier. It seemed to shimmer more intensely now, catching the light in a way that made it seem alive. The faint ping she had heard moments ago was now a distinct higher-pitched hum, a resonant frequency that seemed to vibrate directly from the glass itself. It was almost like the glass was singing along, responding to the king's powerful voice. Elvis pushed further, his voice rising in volume and purity, a crescendo that seemed to defy the limits of human capability. It was a note of pure triumph, of anguish, of hope, all rolled into one. He held it, and then just as he began to slightly pull back from the very peak of the note, the sound happened. It wasn't an explosion, it wasn't a crash. It was a sharp, distinct crack. The glass on their table, the ordinary water glass, suddenly fractured. A hairline crack appeared near its rim, then spider-webbed outwards in an instant, crisscrossing its surface. For a brief suspended moment, it hung there intact, but visibly shattered like a delicate crystal spiderweb. Then, with a gentle, almost soft tinkle, the top half of the glass simply separated from the base, falling onto the pristine white tablecloth. It wasn't a violent disintegration, but a quiet, almost elegant collapse. The water that had been inside sloshed out, forming a small dark puddle on the white linen reflecting the stage lights. Clara gasped, a small choked sound. She wasn't the only one. A ripple of gasps and murmurs spread through the tables immediately around them. For a split second, everyone was stunned into silence, their eyes fixed on the shattered glass, then on Elvis, then back to the glass. Elvis himself, his face still flushed from the immense effort, his chest heaving slightly, seemed to notice the commotion from the corner of his eye. He finished the final fading note of Bridge Over Troubled Water on a softer, sustained hum, and the final chords of the band swelled, then faded into silence. The applause, when it came, were exclamations of surprise, of awe. People were pointing, whispering, looking from the table to Elvis as if trying to grasp what they had just witnessed. Clara's parents, who had also seen it, were wide-eyed. Her mom reached for her arm, her grip tight. Did you see that?" she whispered, her voice full of disbelief. Clara could only nod, her throat suddenly dry. Her heart was pounding, not just from the excitement of the song, but from the shock of the impossible, a glass shattered by a voice. It felt like something out of a fairy tale or a comic book, but it had happened right in front of her. Elvis now, with a microphone in hand again, looked directly at their table. His eyes, usually full of mirth or passion, were wide with a mix of surprise and a hint of concern. He saw the shattered glass, the small puddle of water, a beat past. Then a slow, disarming smile spread across his face, a smile that seemed to say, "Well, now look at that." He leaned into the microphone, his voice a playful drawl. "Well, I guess that note had a little more oomph than I thought," he said, a chuckle rumbling through the speakers. The audience burst into laughter and applause, a mix of relief and renewed admiration. Tension broke, replaced by an atmosphere of awe and delight. It wasn't a mistake. It was a feat. A demonstration of unimaginable power. Clara looked at the broken glass, its sharp edges glinting under the stage lights. It lay there, a testament to the raw, visceral force of Elvis Presley's voice. It wasn't just a performance anymore. It was a moment of magic. And Clara knew with absolute certainty that this moment would forever be etched into her memory, a vivid, almost unbelievable truth. The immediate aftermath of the shattered glass was a strange mix of chaos and continued awe. While the general audience roared with laughter and applause at Elvis's witty remark, those around Clara's table were still processing the direct impact. A waiter, alerted by the commotion, quickly approached, his eyes wide with surprise as he took in the broken glass and spilled water. "Everything all right here, folks?" he asked, a professional smile struggling to mask his shock. He began to efficiently clear away the shattered pieces, his movements careful and precise. Clara instinctively reached out, her fingers hovering over the larger bottom piece of the glass that remained on the table. It felt surreal, like a beckett from another dimension. Her mother gently took her hand, a silent gesture of comfort and shared astonishment. On stage, Elvis had quickly recovered his composure. He still had that amused, slightly bewildered look, but he was already moving on. He picked up his guitar. All right, he said, grinning. "Let's not get too carried away. Don't want the whole hotel falling apart now, do we?" More laughter from the crowd. He launched into the opening chords of Suspicious Minds, a high-energy number that immediately reignited the crowd's excitement, sweeping away any lingering unease from the mysterious incident. But for Clara, the magic of the evening had deepened. It wasn't just a show anymore. It was an experience laced with the extraordinary. She watched Elvis perform the rest of the set with a new perspective, feeling the vibrations of his voice, not just in her ears, but almost in her very bones. Every powerful note, every sustained chord felt charged with the potential to break something, to move something, to change something. She kept glancing at the spot on the tablecloth where the glass had been. The waiter had replaced it with a fresh, intact one, but the damp patch and the lingering sense of the impossible remained. It was a physical manifestation of the power of music, something she had always believed in emotionally, but now had witnessed physically. When the show ended, as Elvis bid his emotional farewell and disappeared back to the roar of the standing ovation, Clara felt a strange mix of exhilaration and exhaustion. Her mind was reeling. As they slowly navigated their way out of the crowded showroom, people around them were still buzzing. "Did you see that glass?" someone exclaimed behind them. "I swear his voice just did it." Another person chimed in. "I've heard stories, but I never believed it. He's truly got something special." Clara listened, a quiet smile forming on her face. She had been there. She had seen it with her own eyes, back in their hotel room. Her parents were still animated. "I'm going to tell everyone I know," her dad declared, shaking his head in disbelief. "They won't believe me, but I saw it." Clara sat by the window looking out at the glittering lights of the Strip, but her mind was still on the dark, hushed showroom in that singular, shattering moment. She pulled out a small notepad and a pen from her purse. She felt an urgent need to write it down, to capture the raw feelings before they faded. "Tonight, I saw the impossible," she wrote, her pen scratching against the paper. Elvis sang Bridge Over Troubled Water with such power, such raw emotion, that a glass on our table literally shattered. It wasn't a trick, it was real. His voice. She paused, chewing on the end of her pen. What did it mean? Was it just a freak accident, a rare combination of pitch and frequency? Or was it something more, a manifestation of the emotion he poured into his music? a symbol of something breaking and something new emerging. She had been feeling fragile lately, like a thin glass herself teetering on the edge of breaking. And then this powerful sound had come and shattered something. Yes, but in a way that felt almost cleansing. It wasn't destructive in a bad way. It was a powerful, undeniable release. It made her wonder about the power within herself, the unseen forces that could be unleashed. She knew she would carry this moment with her long after the bright lights of Vegas faded. It wasn't just a concert memory, it was an inflection point, a spark that had ignited something within her own quiet soul. King had not just entertained her, he had shown her a glimpse of the extraordinary, and in doing so had subtly challenged her to look for it within herself. Backstage. The news of the shattered glass had spread like wildfire. Elvis, unwinding in his dressing room, wiping off sweat and makeup, had heard the buzz. His band members, some still buzzing with adrenaline, walked in their faces a mix of awe and amusement. "Well, boss, you really did it this time," exclaimed James Burton, his lead guitarist, shaking his head. "Never seen anything like it. Heard about it, sure, but never witnessed it." Elvis chuckled, running a hand through his damp hair. "Yeah, I felt something when I hit that note," he admitted, a thoughtful frown creasing his brow. "But I didn't think I'd be redecorating the tables." He leaned back in his chair, a slight weariness in his eyes that only his closest circle saw. The power he put into each performance took a toll. Colonel Tom Parker, his manager, bustled in a triumphant gleam in his eye, already seeing the publicity potential. "Elvis, my boy, a true miracle. We'll call it the Sonic King. Imagine the headlines. Elvis's voice so powerful it shatters glass. This is gold, solid gold." He began pacing, already formulating press releases in his mind. Elvis just sighed, a faint smile playing on his lips. "It ain't about the headlines, Colonel," he said softly. "It's about the music. About reaching folks. I hope I didn't scare anybody." He paused, his gaze distant. "That song, Bridge Over Troubled Water. It means a lot. You really got to put your whole heart into it." He was a showman, yes, but at his core, Elvis was a sensitive soul deeply connected to his music and his audience. The idea that his voice could accidentally cause damage, even if it was just a glass momentarily, troubled him. Was it a sign, a reminder of the immense power he wielded, or just a random act of physics? He wasn't sure, but he knew one thing. He had felt a profound connection to the emotion of that song tonight, a deeper wellspring of feeling than usual. Meanwhile, Clara lay in bed, the Vegas lights still twinkling outside her window, but her thoughts were far from the neon glamour. She kept replaying the moment in her mind. The crack, the gentle tinkle, the water spreading on the tablecloth. It felt like a sign, too, not just for Elvis, but for her. The shattered glass represented something profound to her. It was as if her own internal anxieties, the quiet pressures she felt, were the glass. And Elvis's voice, the pure, unadulterated passion of his music, was the force that could break through. Not violently, but it broke the old to make way for the new. She thought about her struggles. The fight with her best friend Sarah had been about Sarah joining a new, more adventurous group, leaving Clara feeling like she was being left behind, too quiet, too predictable. Clara had tried to talk to her, but the words had felt hollow, ineffective. Parents' arguments, too, felt like a silent, invisible barrier that had slowly been built between them. She wanted to say something to fix it, but felt powerless, like a child again. But now she felt a shift. That moment in the showroom had awakened something in her. The power of a single voice, a single emotion to break through. It made her wonder if she too possessed such power, not in her voice, but in her spirit. Power to break through her own shyness, her own fear of confrontation, the power to speak her truth. She imagined the glass, pristine and whole, then fractured, and finally pieces scattered, but no longer confining. There was a freedom in the breaking. Clara reached for her notepad again, picking up where she left off. His voice didn't just break the glass. It broke something open inside me too, she wrote. It made me see that sometimes to move forward, something has to shatter. The old ways, the old fears. They have to break apart to let something new emerge. She felt a surge of courage she hadn't known she possessed. Tomorrow, she would find a way to express what she truly felt. Maybe not to Sarah, not yet, but perhaps to her parents. Or maybe just to herself in a way that felt like a quiet declaration of independence. The image of Elvis on stage pouring his heart out, pushing the very limits of his voice, was seared into her mind. He wasn't just performing, he was giving. And in that giving, he had inadvertently given Clara a gift, the realization that the most powerful forces are often born of the deepest emotions. The glass had shattered. Yes, but it had also illuminated a path forward for Clara, one filled with a promise of newfound strength. The next morning, Clara woke with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in a long time. The vibrant dream of Elvis's voice still echoed in her mind, and the image of the shattered glass was as clear as if it had just happened. She knew she couldn't simply pack it away as a concert memory. It felt too significant. After a quick breakfast with her parents, who were still recounting the previous night's events to anyone who would listen, Clara excused herself. "I'm just going to browse in the hotel shops for a bit," she told them, a plan already forming in her mind. She made her way down to the expansive hotel lobby, a dazzling space filled with marble and chandeliers, a stark contrast to the quiet introspection of her thoughts. Her destination wasn't the fancy boutiques, but the hotel's souvenir shop, a place bursting with keychains, postcards, and hopefully something that might help her process her feelings. As she browsed through racks of trinkets, she found herself drawn to a display of simple, elegant glass figurines. A small, delicate bird caught her eye. It was beautiful, but she shook her head. No, she wanted something that acknowledged the breaking she was about to leave when she saw him. Not Elvis, but one of his musicians, the keyboardist, looking a little tired but still recognizable. He was standing near the hotel's main entrance talking to a man in a crisp uniform, presumably hotel security. Their conversation seemed low, private. Clara hesitated. Should she approach him? What would she even say? "Excuse me. Your boss shattered a glass with his voice last night, and it changed my life." She almost laughed at the thought, but a part of her, the newly courageous part, urged her on. This was a chance, a thread connecting her to that extraordinary moment. She took a deep breath and walked slowly past them, trying to look casual. As she passed, she overheard a snippet of their conversation. "Still can't believe it, Charlie," the security man was saying, shaking his head. "Never seen anything like it in all my years here." The keyboardist Charlie chuckled. "Believe me, neither have we. Frank Elvis he was really feeling that one. He puts his whole soul into those ballads." Paused, then added, "He was a bit shaken by it afterwards, actually. Worried. He'd scared folks, but honestly, it was incredible." Clara stopped, her heart thumping. This detail, this tiny glimpse into Elvis's genuine nature, resonated deeply with her. It wasn't just a showman's feat. It was the raw power of a caring human being. She turned, gathering her courage. "Excuse me," she said, her voice surprisingly steady, though her palms were sweaty. Both men turned a little surprised. Charlie, the keyboardist, smiled kindly. "Yes, young lady?" I was there last night," Clara began, gesturing vaguely in the direction of the showroom. "At the concert. My table was right in front of where the glass shattered." Charlie's eyes widened in recognition. So you saw it up close then? Quite a sight, wasn't it?" "It was astonishing," Clara said, choosing her words carefully. "I just wanted to say that it wasn't scary. Not for me. It was amazing, and it felt like he was really giving everything he had. That song, Bridge Over Troubled Water, it was so beautiful." Charlie's smile softened. "He really does give it his all. Every single night, that one especially. He feels those words." He nodded as if acknowledging a shared understanding. "And it's good to hear." It wasn't scary. He was a bit concerned, about the acoustics and all that. No, Clara insisted, feeling a surge of confidence. It felt powerful, like anything is possible. Like breaking through? She knew she was rambling a bit, but the words tumbled out, fueled by the conviction she felt. It made me feel like I could break through things too. Charlie looked at her, his gaze thoughtful. Well, I'll tell him you said that, he promised, his voice genuine. He'd like to hear that it moved someone that deeply. That's what he aims for, not just entertainment, but connection. He gave her another warm smile, then nodded to the security guard and turned to leave. You have a good day now. Clara watched him go, a warmth spreading through her. It was a brief encounter, nothing dramatic, but it felt monumental. She hadn't just witnessed a legend, she had connected with the human being behind the legend, even if through a third party. And the simple acknowledgement that Elvis worried about scaring people, that he truly put his heart into his music, only deepened her admiration. She felt a renewed sense of strength, a quiet resolve. The shattered glass was indeed a symbol, not of fear, but of breaking open, of transformation. And knowing that the artist himself was driven by such genuine emotion only amplified the message. Clara now knew with even more certainty that she was ready to face her own troubled waters. Clara left the hotel lobby, feeling a strange lightness in her step. The brief interaction with Charlie Elvis's keyboardist had solidified her feelings about the shattered glass. It wasn't just a physical phenomenon, it was imbued with meaning, a direct connection to the raw, giving heart of the artist. As she made her way back to their room, she found her thoughts drifting to the broken glass itself. The waiter had cleared it away so quickly last night, but what if there was still a piece, a tiny fragment that had been overlooked? A sudden, almost instinctive urge propelled her back towards the showroom entrance. She knew it was a long shot, but she had to try. The doors were closed now, but a cleaning crew was still working inside. She peered through the glass, her heart fluttering with a hopeful anticipation. A friendly cleaning lady, seeing Clara's curious gaze, smiled. Looking for something, dear? Clara felt a blush creep up her neck. Yes. Last night I was at a table third row and a glass shattered from the sound, She saw a flicker of recognition in the cleaning lady's eyes. I was just wondering if by any chance any little pieces were left behind. The cleaning lady paused, then smiled knowingly. Ah, the famous glass. Everyone's talking about that one. Funny you should ask. I noticed a tiny little shard, almost invisible, caught in the carpet fibers, right by where that table was. Didn't want anyone to step on it, so I put it aside. She reached into a small zippered pouch on her cleaning cart and pulled out a minuscule, irregular piece of glass, no bigger than Clara's thumbnail. It was transparent, sharp-edged, and shimmered faintly in the artificial light. Is this it? She asked, holding it out. Clara gasped, Yes, oh, thank you so much. She carefully took the tiny shard, her fingers trembling slightly. It was cool and smooth on one side, rough and jagged on the other. It was tangible proof, a physical link to the extraordinary event. Just be careful, the cleaning lady warned with a wink. Don't want any more broken things around here. Clara thanked her profusely and hurried back to her room, cradling the tiny shard as if it were a precious jewel. Once inside, she laid it carefully on the bedside table, watching how it caught the light, refracting it into tiny rainbows. This wasn't just a piece of broken glass. This was a symbol for Clara. It represented breaking through the fear that held her back, the shyness that kept her from speaking her mind, the unspoken anxieties that made her feel fragile. Elvis's voice had been the catalyst, the force that had shattered the literal glass, and in doing so had cracked open something within her own spirit. She took out her notepad again, the one where she had been journaling her thoughts. She sketched the shard of glass, then drew a series of radiating lines from it, like sound waves or rays of light. She wrote, "The shard, it's small, but it holds immense power. It reminds me that sometimes things need to break to become something new. The old container. The old way. Maybe Clara had been too rigid, too unwilling to try new things. Maybe she had built her own invisible walls. This shard was a reminder to be brave, to step out of her comfort zone. And her parents' arguments. She couldn't fix them, but she could express her feelings. She could be the bridge, or at least try to be. She decided that night she would talk to them gently about how their tension affected her. It was a terrifying thought, but the image of the shattered glass and the power of Elvis's voice gave her courage. She took a piece of velvet ribbon from her hair and carefully wrapped the tiny shard in it, creating a small, soft pouch. She tied it loosely and slipped it into her pocket. It was her secret talisman, a reminder of the night magic happened and of the new strength she was beginning to find within herself. This tiny piece of glass wasn't just a memento of an incredible concert. It was a promise, a challenge. It was a tangible piece of the extraordinary, urging her to find the extraordinary within her own ordinary life. It was a reminder that sometimes the most powerful forces are hidden, waiting for the right moment, the right note to be unleashed. The following night, Clara found herself back in the magnificent showroom of the International Hotel, attending another Elvis concert with her parents. This time, her emotional state was entirely different. The nervous anticipation had been replaced by a quiet, steady excitement, a feeling of deep connection. She wasn't just a fan in the audience anymore. She was someone who had witnessed something profound, someone who carried a piece of that magic with her. The tiny velvet-wrapped glass shard was nestled securely in her pocket, a comforting weight. Their table was in a slightly different location tonight, a few rows back, but still offering a good view of the stage. The buzz in the room was still electric, but for Clara it was infused with the memory of the previous night's extraordinary event. She wondered if Elvis would mention it, or if he would simply let the legend grow on its own. As the lights dimmed, and the familiar instrumental intro began, Elvis swaggered onto the stage, magnificent in a different sparkling jumpsuit. The crowd roared just as before, but Clara felt a deeper resonance within her. He launched into his set, a mix of high-energy rockers and soulful ballads. His voice was as powerful as ever, but to Clara's ears it sounded even more nuanced, more deeply felt. When he sang, she could almost see the sound waves vibrating, remembering how they had interacted with that simple glass. During a quieter moment between songs, Elvis stepped forward, holding the microphone loosely. He looked out at the audience, a warm, knowing smile on his face. "You know," he drawled, his voice carrying easily through the room. "Last night, something a little unusual happened." A ripple of knowing laughter went through the crowd. Some people who hadn't been there looked curious, while those who had started murmuring excitedly. Elvis chuckled. "Yeah, that's right. A glass decided. It wanted to join the show. I reckon that note had a mind of its own." He paused, then his expression grew thoughtful. "But seriously, folks, when I sing these songs, especially the ones that mean a lot to me, I really try to pour everything I got into them, every bit of emotion, every bit of soul." He gestured with his hand. "'Cause that's what music is, ain't it? It's about feeling. It's about reaching out and touching something in somebody else's heart." Clara's eyes welled up. He understood. He wasn't just talking about the shattered glass. He was talking about the power of connection, the very thing that had transformed her. He didn't sing Bridge Over Troubled Water tonight, but when he sang other heartfelt ballads like Can't Help Falling in Love and American Trion, Clara felt a new kind of power in his voice. It wasn't just the sheer volume or range. It was the raw vulnerability, the honest emotion that resonated deeply with her. She closed her eyes, letting the music wash over her, feeling it infuse her with strength. During the final song, a triumphant rendition of Mystery Train, Clara realized something profound. The shattered glass wasn't just a symbol of breaking through. It was a symbol of her own voice finding its strength. She had been silent for too long, letting her fears and insecurities define her. That night, with the power of Elvis's voice, something had shifted. That very evening, back in their hotel room, Clara took a deep breath. Parents were packing, their usual quiet tension still in the air. "Mom, Dad," she began, her voice a little shaky but determined. They both looked up, surprised by her directness. I know things have been a little tough lately," she continued, clutching the tiny shard of glass in her pocket. "And I just wanted to say it makes me sad when you're quiet like this. I love you both. And I just want us to be okay." Her parents exchanged a startled look. Her mom's eyes softened, and her dad's shoulders visibly relaxed. It wasn't a dramatic resolution, but it was a beginning. Quiet, honest breaking of the silence inspired by a much louder, more powerful breaking from the night before. Her mom came over and put an arm around her. "Oh, sweetie," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. "We'll be okay, thank you for saying that." Her dad nodded, a gentle smile on his face. It was a small step, but for Clara it felt like a giant leap. She had used her voice, not in song but in truth, and it had made a difference. The shattered glass hadn't just changed a table. It had changed her, giving her the courage to break through her own silence and find her strength. She knew that this new beginning, sparked by the king, was just the first note in a much longer, more powerful song of her own life. Years passed. The vivid memory of the shattered glass in the Las Vegas showroom never faded for Clara. It remained a powerful touchstone, a symbol she carried with her far more precious than any souvenir. Tiny shard of glass, still wrapped in its velvet ribbon, resided in a small wooden box on her dresser. A constant, quiet reminder. Clara had indeed found her voice that night in Las Vegas, had been a turning point. She had gone back home and, slowly but surely, begun to dismantle the invisible walls she had built around herself. She had reached out to Sarah, not with accusations, but with vulnerability, explaining how she felt. Their friendship hadn't been instantly fixed, but it had begun to heal, slowly mending like the cracks in a once broken bond. Her conversations with her parents, sparked by that first brave declaration, had opened up new lines of communication. Their home became a place where feelings were expressed, not just quietly stewed. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it was warmer. Clara found that simply articulating her truth, breaking through the silence, often led to understanding and healing. She applied to colleges, not with dread, but with a newfound sense of purpose. She chose a path that allowed her to explore her passion for communication and creative writing, a way to use her own voice to connect with others. She learned that vulnerability could be a form of strength, and that sometimes the most powerful impact came from genuine emotion. Elvis continued his reign as the king of rock and roll, performing to sold-out crowds, his voice enduring as a cultural phenomenon. Clara followed his career, attending a few more concerts over the years, always feeling that unique connection to the man whose voice had literally broken barriers. She wondered if he ever thought about that particular night, that particular note, that particular glass. She imagined he might, seeing how genuine he was. Perhaps he saw it as a happy accident, a testament to his raw talent. For Clara, it was so much more. She often told the story of the shattered glass to friends, to family, even to new acquaintances. Each time she described the awe, the impossible power, the feeling of something truly extraordinary happening. And she always ended by talking about what it had meant to her, how it had taught her about the power of voice, both his and her own. One day, years later, she was giving a presentation in a college class, talking about the impact of music on society. She referenced Elvis, of course, and then, without planning to, she shared the story of the shattered glass. She spoke with such passion, such conviction that her classmates were captivated. When she finished, a quiet moment hung in the air, then a ripple of applause. A professor approached her afterwards. "That was a remarkable story, Clara," he said, his eyes thoughtful. "You truly made us feel the power of that moment, and the way you connected it to the idea of breaking through, that was very insightful." Clara smiled, a confident, genuine smile that had replaced her old shyness. She thought of the little shard in her box at home, and the memory of Elvis's powerful voice. resonating through the showroom. Power of a single note sung by a king had created a legendary moment that echoed far beyond the stage. It had shattered a physical barrier, yes, but more importantly, it had shattered the invisible barriers within a young girl's heart. It had shown her that the human voice, filled with passion and honesty, had the capacity to create, to connect, and profoundly to transform. And in that transformation, Clara had found her own powerful song, a heartwarming melody of courage, connection, and a life lived with her true voice. The hum of Las Vegas remained, but for Clara, it was now infused with the lasting, powerful echo of a single, unforgettable note.